Welcome everyone. I'd like to call the Dover School Committee meeting up Monday, May 16th to order. Any community comments this evening? Great. We'll move on to the Dover PTO. Ruth.
Hi. So I just thought I'd give you a very quick recap of the year, as this will be my last meeting with you. Next month you will be handed over to Sarah Carini, who's going to be the next president. So this year, it's been a great year thanks to the teams that we've had, the volunteers, the school, the students, and especially the board. So we've had 5 community events: back to school picnic, games night, movie night, science fair and bike safety. All very successful, all well attended. We had 39 curriculum enrichment sessions across all grades, a successful MFA trip with all spaces taken and requests for more. We had the start of a MAD programme, Making a Difference. We're developing this following on from Laura and Deb, who had Making a Difference start in the school, which is about kids doing a little bit more for charity or doing something for a favourite charity. What we wanted to do was to have a programme that introduced the kids to the students to helping charities in different ways, not just bringing in $1 to wear a hat or something neon. It was all about being able to get involved in the community in different ways and learn how to get involved in different ways and help in different ways, whether it be helping with the food pantry, sorting through those, or actually doing something hands-on. So we've started that this year in terms of talking about it and preparing, and we're going to launch it in September, which will probably be half-day Wednesdays and bringing in students that way. Hospitality went well. We delivered all the teachers' luncheons and the bus driver cafeteria staff breakfast. Fundraising was started well with Dover Days, Amazon, box tops, thank you Dawn for yours, Target Red Card, and of course the icing on the cake was the auction. We had an amazing team. They did a fantastic job with the party. I think everybody enjoyed it. I think the Facebook clicks spoke for themselves. We increased our Facebook clicks by around 3,000 the week after the auction. So a huge thanks to everybody that was involved, the parents, the school, the team that ran it especially, the students, and also the town employees that helped us. The total that we took after expenses was around $70,000. So in comparison to the last year, that was brilliant. We actually had slightly less in terms of the enrollment of kids, and we had slightly less in terms of the number of parents that actually came along to the auction. And yet we still managed to raise around the same amount as they did, so very proud of the team.
Was this, am I right in saying this was the year that you had the professional auctioneer?
Yeah.
Did you think, was that a contribution?
We think it helped. Yes, it meant paying out some money, but we feel that we got that back. He was great in terms of he pushed people to spend a little bit more. He had some great tricks. He just knew when somebody was hesitating but may do a little bit more. So yes, in comparison to having seen the other 2 years and the other auctioneers, I did feel that it was great. Also, the checkout process ran so smoothly in terms of, because they had the computers, the laptop set up, it was very automatic, very, very timely. So yeah, we felt it was well worth it. So yeah, so that's really it for this year. So thank you for having me.
There's no more? That's fabulous. I actually had the opportunity to stop by the day they were setting up for the auction, and it was unbelievable in there. I mean, it was really, really well done. So I'm glad you had a successful evening.
Thank you.
And the rain broke for an hour for the red carpet,
know,
right?
it was perfect.
So congratulations on a great year. And it means PTO every year pulls out just wonderful things, I think, for the Chickering community.
And the parents continue to give generously every year. They're wonderful, and the volunteers too, just amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth.
Thanks.
And tell Victoria thank you also, so she could be here. Reports with Ms. Gael, principal.
Thank you. Moving on from that, and I can't thank Ruth enough for all the incredible work that she's done, much more than I'm even aware of. We also had the International Night recently, which was very well attended. We had a record number of countries that were represented this year, 25. And we had a lot of staff attending this year, a lot of families who participated in setting up tables, but also those who came through, a lot of performances. And it feels really good that we're able to recognize diversity within our community and really celebrate that. So happy to have that. We're in our end of the year mix of all sorts of things going on, and it's very exciting, and looking forward to the final weeks of the school year. Do you have any questions?
In the write-up you mentioned the first year of having the qualified peer observer in place, and it seemed throughout the whole year that that's been such an important piece to the teams and how they work, and also making the evaluation system a journey that people walk together with as part of their teams. Is there anything you can share with us just in terms of what sort of things work particularly well, what lessons that were learned, or just any more snippets on that? Just because I think it's an element that the community probably knows less about, because it's obviously an internal faculty thing.
Yes.
But it's something that's I think to be lauded.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have that piece. I think it's probably the most meaningful part of the evaluation system right now, because it is peer-to-peer. People feel completely safe talking about their practice and raising new questions. The people who offered to become QPOs to a person said they wanted to do it because they wanted to learn from the other people. And that is the feedback that I've gotten. It's been very much beneficial to both people involved in that. And I have a meeting set up with this year's QPOs and the two people who are joining us for next year in 2 weeks. And I'm just looking forward to learning more and how we can improve the process. I know Dr. Leduc has set up all the trainings, and I think that's gone really well this year.
How does it work year to year? If Henry was my QPO, do we continue next year, or is a pack shuffled, or
It's an alternating year with the evaluation cycle. So next year, then you would be observed by an administrator, and then the following year you would be back on a QPO cycle. And we'll be continuing with the structure that people will meet for half a year with a QPO as we increase the number of people in that pool. So hopefully in a couple of years, people can work with the same QPO the whole year.
And how many are there for next year?
We'll have 7. 6 or 7.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The open personnel positions that we have identified to date, have we posted them, and have we started to receive interest and whatnot? So,
We absolutely have. We have interviewed for 3 of the positions. We have interviews starting tomorrow for a 4th, and I expect in the next 2 weeks we'll start interviewing for the 5th opening.
then thank you. And then the special education chair, team chair, with the director position that we have open for the whole district. Are we keeping that in mind, or is there one before the other, or are we just moving forward until we know what's going to happen there?
They're going concurrently. There's a possibility that we might, share some of the strong candidates and see where there would be a good fit. I'm not involved in the district level search for a K-12 special ed director.
Right. I was just thinking, that position might have an influence on Chickering, right?
No, I wouldn't say so. They're 2 separate searches. There's specific qualities that we're looking for in the team chair. There'll be theoretically 2 new people that will get to know each other as part of that process. But I think that doing them concurrently certainly, is not problematic in any way.
Okay.
Doesn't hurt one, the candidate pool is actually different.
Right, different
Yeah.
skill sets.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want, in a sense, they're working together. Obviously, one is more of the boss, so I want to make sure that sometimes they like to have input, but I guess timing's not going to work out that way, so.
Right.
I have one more question, if that's okay. The School Advisory Council, and you commented that going to have a larger group. You're ideally a larger group next year. I'd love to understand the thinking there, but also does the composition going to shift slightly? More of one part of the community, or are all constituents, all stakeholders? Because there's some parents, there's some faculty, there's administration. When it grows, will it grow in equal share, or how will it look?
Yes, we have to have an equal number of educators and parents.
Okay.
And we've had a small group the past couple of years, and the thinking is that if we have a larger group, we'll have more input from the community, we'll have richer discussions. It's put in place by the state for the group to advise the principal, and I always look forward to getting information about the community. And in part because of the composition of the group, attendance can be an issue.
Yeah.
So we're thinking of switching it to the morning and having a larger group so that if some people can't come due to other commitments, we'll still have a large enough body there to have a good discussion. That's the hope.
So is it another 4 or another 6, another 2?
We'll probably add another 4. We have one person rolling off.
And I can speak to that a little bit. We're hoping to see a little bit more involvement because, as Mrs. Dial was saying, if one person's out, that could be like 20% of the committee. So by having more people there that are involved and active and switching to the morning could be a great strategic move. Then you get different pockets of influence within the town and within the school to have impact and influence. So as long as people are engaged, the number we have now could be great if they're engaged, but by expanding it and also have engaged individuals, I think we'll see more of a better dialogue and more, just hopefully more discussion going on. So,
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Dial? Thank you. Dr. Leduc?
Thank you. For the first time, the Dover-Sherburne Public Schools in Chickering is included will undertake a formal curriculum review cycle. In the past, you've heard me speak and my former predecessor speak about how we've aligned our units to understanding by design, aligning to the Massachusetts standards as they were released in 2011. And we spent a lot of time making sure the curriculum was aligned. Now it's time to formally review it. A lot of districts do that. It's the National Study of School Evaluation, that format that I'm using, and I've given you several documents to review to look at what that curriculum review cycle looks like. We're going to look at curriculum, we'll look at instruction, we'll look at assessments as those inform what our students know, are able to do, understand, and can explain. We'll also look at leadership in the way that we provide that leadership for the areas that are focus for the curriculum review. And we'll also look at professional development because we know that that's sometimes needed in order to be able to support our educators, as seen this year by the DSEF grant led by Deb for the science, professional development, and inquiry. So you can see the first page just talks about how the cycle will look. The second are the essential questions, understanding by design. The third talks about the process. We'll look at those 5 areas. We'll survey faculty. We'll actually review the curriculum documents. They'll also survey their perceptions on the curriculum. We'll survey families, students and administrators. And then we'll write up a report that you'll probably receive in late November. I plan on conducting the curriculum review in September. Based on that, we'll look at what needs to happen, what do we notice, and what needs to happen next in those 5 areas. And on the last page, you can see sort of the draft of our curriculum review process for the 2016-2017 school year. We're going to begin with science, technology, engineering, and computer science. Basically, because the new standards came out in January of 2016, the district has done an incredible amount of work thinking about what the units of study could be. We'll review those documents in the fall and make some recommendations going forward. And it could be that some of those recommendations suggest some curriculum resources that are needed. We may have them in time for the budget. We may have to put a placeholder in. It depends on how far we get. But we're going to start there. We're also going to review computer science because Chickering is blessed to have a K-5 curriculum in computer science taught by Steve Hart and supported by Cheryl Chase in the Media Center here. So I think it's important for us to look at those draft standards from the state. That'll be voted on soon so that we'll also look at that. And then going forward, the subsequent year mathematics and then literacy and social studies, those may shift because in 2016-17, the state's going to start looking at the social studies standards. So we can realign and move on the way things as we need. But I think that formal curriculum review cycle will give us a snapshot, K-12, of what's happening in the content areas now that we have such a robust written curriculum.
On that schedule, Mrs. Doherty's not here, but she did want me to voice that she was pushing for literacy to be moved up. She feels like ELA is something that we always sort of push aside a little bit, and with all the talk that we've had here, she would like to sort of see that moved forward, if there was any way to move it up or potentially run 2 at a time, just so it doesn't have to wait till 2018 to be looked at. So I told her I would share that comment.
Karen, can I just ask just with Spanish marching its way down the grades every year, it was part of the thinking to have the foreign languages towards the end, just because we may not know what we may need to know until that later time. Was that part of the thinking to have it?
It was, and it's also that we're already looking at the foreign language elementary program, Spanish program, because we're writing the curriculum as we go, and we're heading into 3rd grade. So in a year when we're heading into 4th, we'll have those conversations with the middle school in order to transition. So those will naturally occur. And then as it's solidified, and I'm also hoping that curriculum at the state level will get some look-see, because the last document was 1999. Social studies too was 1999.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we're hopeful. Anything else on the curriculum review cycle? The other portion is the educational technology plan. In January of 2016, you've heard me mention here before, the National Education Technology Plan was released. And we started to look at it to then redraft the Dover-Sherburne Education Technology Plan. The current one expires this year. So we got together as a group to look at how technology supports the curriculum. And using this education technology plan, which is aligned to 5 standards of learning, teaching, leadership, assessment, and infrastructure, how the technology, and pencils of technology as far to a MacBook, so whatever the technology is to support the learners. The clear objectives and outcomes that are listed here under those 5 subtopics were developed jointly with the Technology Advisory Committee, of which Lauren Doherty is a member, and we have some great representation from the other schools, plus the community, and I can't say enough about the community members and how they supported us in thinking about this technology plan. But the more robust conversations came when, as a district, we came together as administrators and educators in the classroom to think about what will this look like. And I wanted to thank Laura Dial, Cheryl Chase, the librarian, Steve Hart, the tech integration specialist, and Natalia Shea, the occupational therapist. She's across several buildings, but their perspectives to inform this document were extremely helpful in thinking about, so what is it we believe about technology? You'll see each of those, starting on page 8, each of those 5 subgroups has an essential question. What are their specific goals? And those goals are lifted right from the National Education Technology Plan and adapted to what Dover-Sherburne needs to be doing. And then you can see the what's, the how's, the resources, the outcomes, and the timeline. I think we as a district prioritized what we felt was needed. Each school building will then convene their own building-based technology team in order to think about, so what's next for Chickering. And I think having Laura there, as we developed this, she probably already has some ideas, maybe has discussed them with the advisory council and PTOs and some of the staff here. So I think this is a logical next step for us. And we're still awaiting the state plan, but I'm confident it will align with this national plan. So that's a quick down and dirty. what would happen is, this is the first time you're really getting a chance to look at this. So during the June meeting, if you have anything to share tonight, please do. But during the June meeting, if there are specifics that you would like to share, to give us feedback, and then it will come before the joint school committee at the joint meeting in June for full vote.
So just to follow up on that quickly, given the timing of the Dover School Committee meeting in June and the joint school committee meeting, which is the next night, after we meet next, if you have any suggestions, comments, or questions between now and the June meeting, if you would direct them to myself or Karen, and we're making note of all of those, and we're following the same procedure with both Sherborne School Committee and the Regional School Committee. And so we've had some suggestions for edits. The leadership team will meet the leadership team has reviewed this, signed off, so to speak. We'll review it again based on the suggestions and comments we receive, and bring a final version back, as Karen indicated, at the joint meeting at the end of June for approval.
This is great, because I think it's definitely going to help as you move forward looking for capital support. Will the technology supplement sort of change a little bit, just so that you can look at that and get the updates on this plan in it?
Yeah,
So there's a way to pull what was going to be done in a particular year?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the tech plan supplements will be informed by this plan, but also written at each building level to
Right.
ensure that it
Right.
matches what that
Right.
building needs.
And Mrs. Doherty, then, I know she's on this committee, but I think she missed the last
She did.
meeting, but just wanted to, so we say we're going to sort of make sure that there's one-to-one internet access. Are we going towards a one-to-one device model, or she wasn't sure if that's what we were trying to say, just wanted to bring that point up.
Right. The goal is so that
Infrastructure.
it's on page 18, goal to ensure that every student educator has at least one internet access device and appropriate software, but it says in and out of school. So what we're actually looking at is to assure that while in school, students have access to the technology they need in order to be able to assure that they're accessing the curriculum. And then at home, hopefully that we've done surveys before, I think 95% of students do have a device at home, but if there's something is needed, we would figure out whatever is needed. But this doesn't mean that we're moving towards a
Okay.
one-to-one.
Okay.
But I think, as it's been piloted in the 8th grade, it's coming down to the 7th pilot, and then if it gets to the 6th, then what does that mean for 5th? So that's a few years off, so we're not quite ready to say
Okay,
that it will
okay.
be a
That makes
one-to-one device with students bringing something to school. I've seen kids bring iPads to school already, but it's not going to be something that will be
Well, and I
required.
had mentioned to her when we were talking about this, that we have the carts that go in and out of classrooms, so for a class time, there is maybe one-to-one for that learning
Right.
opportunity, but not. So I
Only
don't
for
know-
one class at a time.
Exactly.
Potentially.
Right.
Right, when needed.
Yeah.
And you've supported I think it's the 4th or 5th grade, Laura, if you could help me, to get the Chromebooks. Fourth and fifth
So
both.
every classroom throughout the entire school has either an iPad or a set of iPads or set of Chromebooks.
So it's not necessarily one-to-one, but it's access to the
Access to it,
technology
that's the key,
is
yeah.
the
Okay.
difference.
Okay.
And I think it's important to remember that the document has been created in a way that attempts to ensure that there's periodic and timely review of this plan. It's easy to create a 5-year plan, roll it out, this is great, this is wonderful, and then it gets put on the shelf and people forget all about it. But as you go through it, pay attention to the timeline that is associated with the various tasks that have been identified. You'll notice that we're not expecting to complete everything in the 16-17 school year. And so that in and by itself certainly means that, there will be some kind of annual review and report that would be conducted, and that would then give the district-wide committee an opportunity to revise and update the report on an annual basis if it's necessary. So that's what I like about the way this document has been set up.
Well, and that was my point about where is it gonna get incorporated so that it automatically gets updated. So the technology supplement is set up such a way that I think it will have to be sort of revamped, and it could nicely follow this.
And Mr. Ataco, the Director of Technology, will join us at the joint school committee meeting to speak to some of the ideas here too.
Do you see this in terms of communication to the various school committees? Do you see it as embedded as in part of each school improvement plan every year, or do you see it as a separate report coming once every 2 or 3 months, or to the committee, or every month? I mean, how would we?
No, I don't think it'd be every month. I think there's, a lot of this is, it goes away, and as things come up or are completed, it would probably be reported out. It wouldn't get down to the school improvement plan,
Okay.
because that's a total, yeah, sort of a different venue.
Perhaps. I mean,
Perhaps.
I think it would depend on each individual headmaster or principal based on what's happening specifically in their schools and in conversations with their school advisory councils. There may be a certain aspect of this plan that might become a school improvement goal. And so I would encourage that if that's something that individual schools, want to do. There's an example in here when you go through it about at the high school level, looking at the high school media center, and there are some ideas embedded in this that I know Mr. Smith is really excited about. So in order to really kick that off, as an example, he might recognize that as, one goal or aspect of the school improvement plan for that building.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Leduc. That's great information. Interim Superintendent.
Thank you, Don. There are 3 items that I wanted to report on and provide you with an update on the Special Education Director search. Just some information regarding lead and copper and water testing. This has been in the news very much over the last month. So I wanted to provide you with some information about what we do here at Chickering. And then I want to just spend a little bit of time updating you on the current status of our enrollment for next year. So I'm happy to say that the Special Education Director search is moving forward. We have an excellent search advisory committee in place. They've spent the last couple of weeks reviewing over 32 pieces of application materials. So we're very pleased with the number of applicants that were interested in our position. And the committee met as a whole last week. We'll be conducting interviews with the Search Advisory Committee this week on Tuesday and Thursday. We have a good pool of candidates, and we're looking to, it looks like we haven't sent anything out officially yet to the 16 school committee members, but based on a recent poll,
Yes, what was the winner?
it looks like Monday
Yes.
next week, Monday evening, where our intention is to schedule some interviews, public interviews with the school committees of the finalist candidates. And then depending on how that goes, keeping my fingers crossed that we'll be able to, technically, I'll be able to recommend I'll be able to identify a finalist that I would recommend the school committee appoint. And we are hoping not to have to schedule a special meeting to do that, and the timing will work out so that we can do that at the joint meeting in June. But that will depend on the dynamics and, perhaps where a successful candidate might be in other processes that they may or may not be involved in. So that's still a bit tentative. But the process is moving forward, and we're optimistic that we'll have a very successful
Great.
outcome. In terms of the lead and copper testing, in your packet was a copy of the last testing that was done at Chickering, which was in November 2014. The federal regulations from the Environmental Protection Agency requires that testing of water in public schools be done every 3 years. So Chickering has been on that schedule since actually 2005, when those regulations were adopted. However, given the interest that is out there and the information, we thought it would be important to do some updated testing. So that is in the works, and we'll have those results, and we'll be able to share those with you at the June meeting. I'd like to point out, however, that all previous testing that's been done at this school, both in 2014 and previously, the results showed that the levels of lead and copper in our drinking water. So it's the water that comes out of classroom sinks, water that is used in the cafeteria, out of the bubblers. Those are the sources that are tested, are very, very well below what the accepted standards are. So again, based on the November 14 results, there are no issues at the Chickering School regarding
Is the testing
this,
expensive? Why wouldn't we just do it annually?
The testing is actually done by the town, and it's done by the individual who's responsible for the town well, the operation and maintenance of the town well. That's just the mode that they've been in. I would tell you from my experience, water typically is not tested annually, follow the regulations, unless there was a situation where there was a problem, you would fix it, and then you do some monitoring of that on a regular basis following that. Then the last update, last information is regarding enrollment. So in your packet was an update on the update of the March 1st enrollment numbers, and based on that update, you would see that between April 1st and May 1st, there was one additional student who enrolled, at Chickering. That was a third grade student, and that was the first adjustment in the enrollment going back to January. So we had 5 months of no activity, which is good, especially given what we've experienced in this new environment. So what the worksheet that was provided in your packet indicates and shows at the end in terms of projections, you'll note that it still carries the 23 sections across the 6th grade levels, projecting 452 students. But again, that's based on our projection model. Those numbers for next year will change, and I did provide you with some additional information that I passed out. And so I want to try to go through this because the numbers become, if you look at them long enough, they're daunting and get confusing. So as of now, in the discussions Laura and I have had, there's currently 67 kindergarten students that are registered. And we were projecting 69, but we knew in the projection that that would give us class sizes of 23, 23, 23, already one over in each section from our guideline of 17 to 22. So a decision has been made that that 24th section that was provided for in the budget, and based on the interviewing that Laura plans to do, they're looking to hire, use that position in the kindergarten. So having established that, and I believe that's a good decision because I'm sure that we will end up with more than the trend certainly suggests that we'll end up with more than 69 students. And remember, that 69 student projection was based on a 5-year average of the last 5 years of census numbers that we received in December compared to the following September, the number of students that registered. So when we did that calculation, it came out to 69, and the important piece is that those 5 years were a period where the school was seeing declining enrollment. But that number changed dramatically last year, and there's no indication that, given the real estate activity, that will abate. So I think that at this point that's a very good decision, and that gives us plenty of room for growth in that grade level.
67 is firm people who have signed.
And 67 are confirmed
It's
people
confirmed,
who
right.
have actually registered,
Okay.
correct.
Great.
Are you seeing a similar dynamic at Pioneer, Bill? Just to interrupt you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. So the other numbers, and I draw your attention to this document. I think that's the one that we really want to focus on. So in grade 1, we projected 66 students. We currently have 64 kindergarten students. No one at the kindergarten level, no family at the kindergarten level has indicated that they won't be here next year. So as of today, if we assume that those 64 students are moving on to first grade, what this sheet says is in addition to those 64 current kindergartners, we have 5 first grade students confirmed coming next year, which puts the number at 69. So, Laura has done some, this is from Laura, and I thank you, Laura, for doing this, has put in some projected classroom section numbers. It's important to note that currently there are 3 first grade sections, and on the projection worksheet you have, we would show that our projected number 66 was that each section would be at 22, so already at the top of the bubble. So grade 1 is an area that we're continuing to monitor, but the data at this point would suggest we would need to consider another section. In grade 2, again, same formula. I won't go through every grade, but if you follow that,
Yep.
63 current first graders. We have not received any information from those families that they will not be here next year at this point in time. So that projects to 65, which is equal to what we have projected based on our formula. So, you see what the numbers are. This scenario would suggest that there's currently 4 sections in grade 2. Under this scenario, if there were no more students who enrolled in grade 2, we might have 3 sections. And you'll see if you go across, and I won't take you through this, you can see this, but that leaves grade 3 currently has 4 sections. We're within that now based on projections. Grade 5, I'm skipping grade 4, we projected 90. This model shows that we would get 91. We haven't lost any students, at least at this point. So the 5 sections would hold. And so the other area that we really need to look at, in addition to grade 1 and 2, where grade 2, again, we're on the bubble, is grade 4. So we have projected 83 students. Even with the higher enrollment number, the 1-year average, which was showing this renewed trend in growth, we had 86. But again, as of now, we've got 89 students coming into that section. So, if we keep it at 4, that puts us with 3 sections at 22, 1 at 23. So we're really on the bubble there. And if you still have the worksheet that Lauren had produced that shows the different scenarios of if you have 66 kids in 3 sections, you're right at the bubble. If you have 1 more at 23, and you added a fourth section, what does that look like in terms of the breakout? And you see that there's in that scenario, you'd end up with 3 sections that are 1 student below the 17. So there's some thinking, maybe a little more thinking that we have to do about that. But so right now, we're not making any recommendations. We have another month to review this. We'll come back with similar data at the June meeting. We may have some recommendations for you to consider at that time. What hasn't happened yet, and I'm not surprised, but we will see some out-migration of current students. It just happens. So there are some students who are here now but will not be here next year. Either parents just haven't notified us yet, or, that decision hasn't really been made. But I'm thinking that, unless it's grade 2, for example, the way these numbers are falling, and again, take these numbers and put them back against that grid that Lauren had put together, I'm skeptical that even if we have, and we will, the additional out-migration is going to change these numbers much, because we're really on that bubble. And while we're fortunate to know that at this point, there's 5, 7, 10, 17 families, I mean, total of 17 students at this point that have indicated to us they know they're moving to Dover. We've confirmed that, and they've registered for September. I mean, that's...
And it's only May.
And it's only May, exactly. So again, when you have this kind of dynamic with the real estate market in a community that just happens, over a couple of years after you've gone through a decline, the cohort survival methodology of projecting enrollment, isn't very helpful, frankly. So I would say, to me, the good news here is that, believe it or not, we do have a little bit of time. There's a process in place now where class assignments for next year go out sometime in August, right?
Although we're doing all of our planning right now.
No, of course, and part of the planning is scenario A, for example, scenario B, scenario 1 and 2, doing some planning in that regards. So we do have a little bit of time to continue to monitor this to ensure that, we're being as responsible as we can in terms of having class sizes that are within the policy guidelines, and doing it in as responsible a way as we can.
Do we ever formally ask or communicate whether people are planning not to return next year? I don't remember ever receiving anything like that, but is there any way to flush that out a little bit earlier?
We do keep track of students who apply for private schools.
Okay.
That season is around January,
okay.
February. And then we follow up later if we don't
What
have
happened?
confirmation one way or the other.
Okay.
We've been doing that.
So if you add some of these sections, how are we in classrooms? I feel like we filled all the classrooms with.
Do we have any space?
Exactly. They'll have to move some things around. I do really like what used to a lot of classrooms.
We did expand in some ways. We changed a classroom into the integrated preschool. We changed what was being used as an office into the integrated preschool. We changed a classroom into additional office space. So there will be some shifting, but we do have the space to do this, which I'm very fortunate.
So with your permission, one of the things I would like to do, just as a follow-up, is to send some information to the warrant committee, and indicating that, there's a possibility that additional section.
Well, they had the heads up
sections-
in December,
They
right? So
did,
it won't shock
but,
them.
right.
Yeah.
So, but I think it would be helpful just to alert them
Absolutely.
that, we're doing what we said we would do during the budget process of monitoring this, and to keep them in the loop, and then just confirm with the warrant committee the process for requesting additional funds, if that's necessary.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, looking at the numbers and, you know, they feel right, they look right. I have, you know, sort of confidence that the numbers are probably gonna be flushing out the way we predict them. Even if we're wrong by 40%, we're still adding a classroom somewhere, you know what I mean? So we have one that we've already sort of talked about and we've budgeted for. The idea of having another one, I think, is very obvious, at least to me. And, you know, the one class the one grade where we're close, all it takes is one, and that granted, there'll be maybe a net number because people are going out the other direction. Keep a close eye on it. We're interviewing people already, you know, timing's everything, but, you know, as you're interviewing one person, keep just thinking in the back of your head, would I want to hire another one? If we're able to, it's just a question of if they're still available and we might need them. But, you know, if we're looking at candidates, let's keep an open mind about a couple people. Is my thought, because I think these numbers look and feel pretty good to me, or accurate, I should say.
I mean, I think it's tremendous that we live in a town that has a policy on this. And I think when I think about a school committee and respecting that policy, it's something that is one of the more important things that I think we do for the community. Tremendous amount of work, thank you, and thank you into putting this together. But like Henry said, it's great that the warrant committee saw our discussions earlier in the year, and hopefully, because mentally when I look at this, I'm drawn to probably believing we're going to be adding maybe 3 sections, and it's great we have the real estate physical room flexibility. It's great we have the time flexibility, and thank you for doing all the double planning with the class assignments. Must be a royal pain, but thank you.
And how we've adjusted the specialists over the last couple of years, is that capacity going to be an issue?
We'll be fine.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Great, so on the warrant, I'd probably send it to Kate and James, since Doug is there. Any other questions on Bill's report? Good. Moving on to the monthly financial report.
So I think what I'll do is I'll try to be very brief and let you ask me questions and I can clarify. But what you see is a result of the monthly report through April 30th. Although there's a positive variance in salaries right now of $124,000, we're projecting at this point that the year-end positive variance will be $97,000. And the difference there, so we expect to, between now and the end of the year, expend about $27,000 of unencumbered items that are here. And so that's the substitute pay. We don't encumber that line until we know, for example, we have an expenditure that will occur. The professional development, we will expend significant portion of those funds for our end of the year work that is currently being planned, and we're looking to finalize that all that in the next short period of time. And then there'll still be need for some custodial overtime. That's what the custodial services line under salaries is the overtime piece. And this is a time of year when our staff are perhaps using vacation days prior to the end of the year, and so we usually try to provide some coverage there. And then there are, of course, other events that are going on. So, and then on the expenditure side, we're projecting, we currently have a positive variance of about $195,000, and we are anticipating that that at the end of the year, there'll be about $104,000 variance. So there's still some expenditures to make there. I would tell you that, in my opinion, these are really conservative estimates, and that I think those are really, again, conservative numbers, and would not at all be surprised to see if those variances were a little higher at the end of the year. And then out-of-district tuition and transportation, it's been one of those years where there just have been some continuous adjustments. based on needs of students. In some cases, some of those additional 11 students who were not here in September but moved in during the school year. So we're projecting a variance there, a negative variance of a little over $400,000, $406,000. That's up from the last review, which was in March, which had us at $355,000 there. I don't have this information for you tonight, but hopefully at the June meeting, what I'd like to try to do is to find a way to give you some specific examples that are not, that don't break confidentiality of how we went, what the activity was from the time we were finalizing the budget, when we were at about 286,000, I think, or about 303,000 to where we're grown to today. I just think that that's important to have that context and understanding. So we'll work on putting that information together for you. Hopefully, well, if we can do it in a way that we can maintain confidentiality, which I'm pretty sure we can do.
We'd appreciate that. I know Lauren's mentioned that a couple of times as well, so she'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the way it usually works for us, if you look at how we explain the increase from 16 to 17 and from budget to budget, a lot of that information is in there because this all happens as kids move in, and so we have to build it into the budget for 17. So, we had the 2 residential, the non-date kids go to residential, so some of that we've, I think has been described, and now there's been some other changes since the budget was built that will then be built into the 18 budget.
Right, so my point was I was really confident that we went over that $280,000 to $300,000 increase. We know what that is, but over the last few months, there's been some creep to that. So again, I just want to make sure that we're able to give you some more reasoning as to why that's the case. And then the last piece, I just wanted to bring your attention to the revenue. And there's certainly good news there. The cafeteria fund, you heard the report at the last joint meeting. That trend continues to be positive. It's not thousands and thousands, and well, it may be a few thousands of dollars, but it really does appear that we'll at least end this year on a positive note, which is certainly an improvement from last year. The Chickering Preschool revenue account, the last time you saw this, I forget, you and I talked about that, but anyway.
The March report actually said we were going to do 45,000.
Projected that, so we're at 44, which I'm pretty sure is on target with what was projected, so that's good news. And then there certainly are strong balances in the other account. The one account that I think is worth additional noting is the Chickering Gifts Fund. We had a balance in prior year of a little more than $22,000. We did receive some gifts totaling $3,750, which is, I believe, earmarked. I think this gift.
It's pre-K.
Yes.
Yeah, 2, 3.
Right. So the $22,000.
Except for 500 of it. Yeah, 3,250 is earmarked.
Yeah. So the $22,000 that was the prior year fund balance, there's anecdotal information that suggests that there's a balance that has been around for a number of years, and that at this point there's no documentation or information that would suggest that money has a specific earmark. And so as the committee considers some year-end activity, that's a source of funds that is available to the committee to utilize. I think it's good practice, especially in a gifts account, to, if the money is not earmarked, not to have a carryover year after year after year. Committee should make some considerations in utilizing that. So perhaps that's a discussion we'll have at the next meeting.
And I know some of that is earmarked for special education We used to have it broken out. There's a little bit left, a couple of thousand, I think, though. So we'd have to just double check that.
Okay.
And you'll notice that now the reports will show the Chickering student activity accounts going forward, so you can keep an eye on that balance.
Any questions, comments?
Oh, I have,
Oh, yeah, we're on the financials, so I think.
well, just in terms of the students that we know are enrolling next year, when do we find out what, if any, services or how that might hit us? Day one?
I mean, if they've registered and we have their registration material or their information from previous schools, we certainly would know which students require services and the level of services. So we will be meeting internally. We actually talked about this at our central office meeting last week, looking at the opportunity to meet the central office level with each of the schools' administrative team to just review where we stand for next year and what's projected in terms of not just special education services, but perhaps ELL services and some of those other support services that we provide. So we're not rushing around,
Surprise.
at the end of the summer, at the beginning of the year, and trying to have a good handle on, that we're prepared
Right.
and have the resources ahead of time, so,
Okay.
yeah. We are looking at that.
That's happening, okay.
Any other questions on the financials? Okay, so, Ms. Vial, the preschool playground presentation.
So before we get to that,
Sorry.
if I could just make some open comments, I'm sorry. So I'd like the committee to consider addressing this agenda item in two parts. The first would be the consideration of the preschool playground structure and consideration of all the information that both Ms. Dial and Dr. Rangeman have provided the committee, as well as I know they're going to make a brief presentation, so that's important to look at that and then hopefully take some action around the pre-K. And then number two, then just look at the resurfacing of the main playground as a separate issue. Lauren and I have talked about this. I have some questions and a few concerns about moving forward tonight with that particular project. We can talk about that when we get to it.
Okay.
Thank you. I will turn it over to Dr. Ryan.
Good evening. As you recall, when we gathered in October, we started to talk about renovating the existing section of the playground. So if you imagine the building where we are now, if you walk straight up the end of the K-1 wing, that's what we consider the main playground, and then the swings are over here to the side. The area we're talking about is as you go out the doors to the left, which is separated by the walkway and was originally designed as a kindergarten play space. The structure is for 5 to 12-year-olds, and so there isn't an appropriate play space for our pre-K critters. So we move forward with working with Nancy White, who's a playground consultant, to figure out could we retrofit that space and what would make the most sense and be the most economically feasible for the preschool. We worked with a number of about 12 to 15 students, estimating for the preschool, and there's regulations for how much of a preschool space you have to allow per child. We also talked with the staff and the specialists in the building and decided that fencing in the area would make the most sense. They're little, but they're fast, and we'd rather keep them enclosed, so we looked at that space. The structures that are there, some of them can be taken out, and then we've actually looked at putting in a little climbing stone that could go in that was appropriate for 2 to 5-year-olds.
We also then looked at the space. If you have been out there, you realize one side has that poured-in-place rubber, which, I have visuals. It's this stuff, it's actually the surface, underneath what would have been that kindergarten space, and then some lovely scrub. I believe it's just like the scrub soccer field I've since learned about, which is just fill. So it's not a very friendly space to run and play on. We thought about putting in asphalt so the kids could be on those ride-on bikes. But then actually, in talking with people, the suggestion was to extend this surface all the way down in the fenced-in area. And the kids can still ride bikes on that, but if they tumble, it's less of an event. And then the other piece that's missing from that structure is anything that swings. So if you think in terms of an OT perspective, or even any of the playgrounds you've gone to, there's things that spin, there's things you go up and down, there's things you climb on, but there wasn't anything that was swinging. So we looked at a number of designs and came forward with some pictures that we had last time. And what we'd like to do, my really fancy little poster here, is talk about the space just a little bit. You're welcome to take a look at the swing that we want to put in is actually the coolest thing. This is this little piece down here. It's called a palmetto swing. It's 2 large posts. It has 2 tethers that come into a big ring and can actually hold 3 children at a time with the swing. The group that we've worked with is E.A. O'Brien, and this is that current play space that we have, retrofitted. We're looking at putting a climbing stone in. This critter is not technically a 2 to 5-year-old, and we don't have a bench yet, although there might be an Eagle Scout somewhere that wants to do some beautification around the space. This would be our place with about this much space poured in place, and then the whole thing fenced in. 2 gates at either end. We've already consulted with Park and Rec, so the plowing would not be an issue coming around the building. The fire department has come out and checked the space. They can get the trucks through. It won't be a problem for the police, because as you know, several times a night the police come and circle the building. So that's where we are. So we would love to move forward with the project. There's been a number of documents that have come around. The whole project will be about $45,000. We've had some private donations already, and we would like to be able to procure remaining funds to get this project going.
What's the remaining funds?
We're about 30,000. We have about 10,000 we've raised so far from private
35
donations.
to go.
I love the palmetto swing.
I know, does that sound like fun?
You can't fit on that swing.
You can, actually. Just one of you, though. One of us at a time can all go.
It almost looks like a big catapult if you pulled it back a lot.
Don't give any ideas.
That would work.
So I think on the fundraising issue, I see that your letter in there, and I think as a former PTO president, I think you're a former PTO, and I know I have Lauren's feedback too. I don't know if this is the best time to sort of roll out a fundraising letter for actually this amount of, well, say it's 85 or 45, given the successful PTO auction and everyone's feeling high spirits, they've given a lot of money. So it'd be my recommendation with the committee and with PTO's input and whatever other private donations you maybe have out there is to not move forward with a campaign letter, but see where we can come up with the funds to move forward and allow you to do this, but not go out and solicit individual families. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
Well, I actually, I had a question about the letter, thinking more, has there been success for doing a letter before, or, you know, I don't know, like if we've done one before and if it has or hasn't worked.
I don't think so. There's a precedent for a letter to go out from the administration.
There is
not.
Oh, there's not, okay.
No.
I wasn't sure if this was the first event, we weren't sure
No.
what the results could be, or it's been successful before, so we wanted to continue doing it.
I think my fear, and I think the playground looks fabulous, and I think it's a win-win we can make work. I just think I worry about donor fatigue. I worry that it's confusing that 2 months or 6 weeks after the auction that another fundraising letter is going out. And parents, they don't necessarily know where this money's coming from, where it's going, and it just looks like here we are asking for money again. And that could hurt how much is received. It could hurt, I fear, the PTO in the future when they're asking for money, and then people are thinking, well, I gave last time, then a month later they asked for more. So I'm hoping we can find another solution with the PTO that can get us there now, but not have to go through that step. I just worry about the precedent, and I worry about how the kind of the feedback that might be generated from it, and I don't think it would be
We would
great.
love to find another.
So we talked
Yeah.
about, when this came back up in October, obviously, that it made sense to use some of the pre-K revolving fund, since we did not earmark that first year of tuition towards anything. Going forward, it will be earmarked towards paying for the educational assistants. So, just so the committee knows, that was the 44,000
Yeah.
that's highlighted in the report. So a portion of that, the committee can decide to use towards.
And there's the other fund.
And the gift fund.
The gift fund, which I know it's discussions later, I'd say we don't want to go below a number, so because if you're carrying over, it looks like we only add $3,000 to $4,000 a year anyways.
Right.
So we don't want to, I wouldn't go to zero and then have to wait 5 years to get back to $15,000. But,
Right. And as you think about part two, though, if we potentially down the road have the main playground to deal with, that may be where we use that money. But the pre-K, I think definitely that revolving fund makes sense to use towards the pre-K, a piece of it towards the pre-K playground.
But I think, is there a logic in, let's cross this bridge and whatever, let's assess the other element of the regular playground when we
Oh, right.
when we assess it.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we had Bill's comments on the best practice of the gift fund, I mean, I'd like to examine that as well as a proportion of the pre-K fund, if possible.
well, it's part of providing a experience for the pre-K environment, right? You provide a classroom, you provide teachers, you provide, I mean, it's like if you were to run a private, if we were to start our own private pre-K, which ostensibly we did, you would invest in these things. So
right.
it's, we need to do this because it's part of the experience. So I don't think that should hold, I mean, the money will come. So we have some resources in the revolving fund. There's other organizations that could potentially donate that have done first school donations in the past. And there is some other areas to do it. So, I mean, are we looking to approve $35,000 expense, or are we looking to figure out where the money's coming from right now?
Can I just ask Laura and Deb, the private monies that have come in, have you, so that's 10,000, have you had any conversations that would lead you to be hopeful that, with a small number of individuals, to indicate that may be, that after a few conversations you may get to from X to Y, or at the moment you're at 10 and the rest is hope at the moment?
We believe there's more people who would be willing to donate, not to 35,000.
No.
But we do have, we've had other conversations with folks that have said they would come forward, which is sort of what led us to thinking that this might be our only option.
Right.
So
So if, and do you have any, if you were a conservative betting girl, would you think that may be another 5 or maybe another 10, or what would you expect?
I don't bet.
Yes.
Yeah, we really don't know. The intent of the letter was really to open it up and not have to go to a specific person or
You're looking to create a little bit of awareness of a need.
a little awareness, right? And not wanting to perhaps go back to someone who's already
Right.
provided a gift.
But in a way, we're going back to everyone on this
Right.
provided a gift. That's just my concern.
And I acknowledge that, and that's
Yeah.
something that we've had many
Yeah.
conversations about. It's just that it has appeared to us that that's the only option to get to the amount
number.
that we need.
The Dunkin' Donuts preschool climbing wall isn't appealing
Yeah,
to
that'd be
you?
What's it worth here?
Well, what about, I mean, we talked a little bit about Facebook clicks after the PTO auction. Is there any sort of, we want to get the word out without looking like we're looking for donations from people that have been very generous to other parts of the community already. But I mean, is there ways that we can spread the word?
I think part of
And
it's
quickly, too.
the existing enrollment in the preschool this year and next year, and I think we were talking the PTO, even something to the Dover Mothers Group, because that's the incoming sort of population.
Right, we met with PTO last week, And that actually came up as a suggestion as well, so.
But there's a time crunch here, so we.
Right, so I
we
think that's
can't-
where the committee needs to sort of talk about what funding levels they're comfortable with, so they know what else they have to.
And are there any PTO funds going towards the playground PTO president sitting there?
Not at the moment, but it's something that we're open to discussion. But as a PTO, I think in terms of the amount of money, it would be more favourable for the main playground.
So if we were to put the main playground as the step 2, and I did walk around there earlier with a more critical eye than usual, and I mean, it's not perfect, but it's not dangerous or anything if it, I presume, could wait a little bit longer.
You're talking about the main
The main playground?
But it's really the substrate that's in question
In terms of what? It's
in terms of impact.
literally
Yeah,
impacting.
and so it's age, it's durability over time. I think it would be, if I may, a wise suggestion to actually do an analysis to see what needs to be
Yeah.
done to that
Yeah.
service before we go down the road. I'd rather worry about just the preschool.
The question, I think, is, does the surface as it currently exists still contain the absorption qualities that you would want in a playground surface? And,
Are you talking
some-
main playground?
Yeah, the main.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, right, is that the right
But
way to say?
if we park that as,
You could
as
let-
Deb
Yes,
said,
which I-
for
yes,
analysis,
Yes.
just to get to the meat, we've got 2 sources of funding as a committee. The pre-K fund and the
Gift fund.
and the gift fund. Theoretically, two something. Bill, do you have a view on, and for financial prudence, what would be a level that the year could end at for those 2? Or
So before I say that, I would think that a possible action for the committee to consider would be to, and this is directly related to your question, believe it or not, to identify a sum of money that the committee is willing to put towards this playground. And then we just do the math. So if it's X amount still remaining to be raised, the issue of creating awareness about this, there may be other ways to communicate this than a direct appeal letter to all parents. It could be in a newsletter that goes out, a little blurb about, we have this pre-K playground, we've raised through private sources X amount, the school committee is able to provide an additional X amount to fund it, we have a gap of X, and we're hoping that, if there's any interest out there, some interested parties may come forward and help us, close that gap.
Yep.
So that may be a way to garner the kind of financial support that you were hoping to do through the direct appeal letter.
how quickly do we need the money in the door?
Well, if you look at the timeline,
Here's the money
the
going
next,
in the door.
yeah,
Just a matter of you giving it to us.
yeah.
But I mean, when do
Do we
you?
pay it all up front, or when do
No,
we-
it's
what's the payment
it's like
plan
any
to the?
contractor, a little bit up front, and then when the job is done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
we're
and
doing
and
this-
you wanted to do this in July, or do you want to complete it in July, did I read
It
somewhere?
would be ideal to do it in the summertime.
Yes.
We go through a state government contract. Chris Tague actually has been phenomenal, helping out and getting us to get our ducks in a row, if you will. And so there's a contractor that we will use, so we'll get the state rates, and everything goes through an already approved contractor system. So it's just a matter of time.
Can I just ask a clarification, Deb? So on the information you provided us, when you add up all the different segment costs, it's actually handwritten in, the total is $41,677.60.
Yes, that's,
So have you already utilized $4,000 of the $45,000? I'm trying to understand the $45,000.
I don't think the
total
consulting
cost.
so
services.
this quote was one that came in originally before Chris Tague came in and said, excuse me, you've got some things you have to straighten out here. So Chris came back and helped us rework the numbers. The actual number came in lower. So we have not already spent money other than to pay the consultant. The this number is from,
So I guess what I'm asking is,
What's the number?
do you
What's the
need
number?
41,006 or do you need 45,000?
I rounded it up to 45 to
Okay.
make sure that we would have it for the purpose of a fundraising campaign and saying that's our target.
Right.
Expecting that if we were to reach that target and there were, a couple thousand, it would carry over to the other piece, which originally was part of the,
So I was assuming it was this 41,000 and because there's no cost on here for the consultant on this estimate.
okay.
So
Right.
I figured that's how we got up to the 45.
right, no, the consultant's been paid out of the money that was given to the PTO.
So it's-
And it's not in the $10,000?
There is another document that has it broken down.
The reason I was asking is that, in terms of approaching this, again, if it's, if it's 41 and you're looking to be able to move forward in fairly short order, there's one aspect of this that you may be able to put on hold while you're collecting the remaining funds, and that's the fence. Do everything within the playground. The fence is almost $4,000, and so you've narrowed that gap a little more in terms of trying to get some additional funds, and you may in fact be able to raise that $4,000 without any problem. But if you are only able to get $41,000, while it's convenient to have the fence there, one might argue that that's something that could be installed in time. You can still have the playground, students can still use it. Maybe they have to be watched a little more carefully that they don't run away, but I'm sure we could do
Well,
that.
here's my thought. If we have 10 already in
Just
private
ask
donations.
one question, I just wanted to understand what so the need is 41,677 minus 10,000. Is that the need? Is that the gap?
Yes, yes.
So it's
That
31.
is the gap.
How about we just do the 31 out of the remaining number out of the tuition?
The pre-K, you mean?
Done. I mean, there might be a reason not to, but I'm going to throw it out there now to get the ball rolling.
I agree with Brooke that it would be messy for, I think this community could do anything, and if it was asked, it would give. But I agree with Brooke, and you said Lauren had felt the same way, that it would muddy and distract things, I think. From a PDO perspective, you'd also agree?
I spoke to them and Laura about it originally, so they will be the first to say that my initial reaction was that I didn't want it to go ahead because I was concerned about the check writing campaign and the impact that it would have on that. At the last PTO board meeting, we did raise it, and I asked directly the fundraising chair and co-chair, and they weren't concerned. But I think, yeah.
Okay. Given the amount of money in both the accounts, is it possible that the school committee could backstop and say the 31,000, but allow some form of a newsletter to go out to raise, to ask interested families or people with particular interest in this, or have had a pre-K or may have a pre-K child to donate, and that gives the opportunity for the community to react, but to a newsletter piece, as you said.
Sure.
But given the balances here, unless you think we're draining these two.
No, you can do that.
It's advantageous.
I would hold on to the minutes of this meeting until after there's a chance for people to fundraise.
No,
I'm being, that's a wise guy
Can you do it
comment,
like
sorry.
up to an amount
I just-
of, could this committee release up to an amount of, and we can see what we can get in the meantime?
I just think, the money's here, and let's just do it. I mean, we got people moving into the town, there's people are looking at the preschool, and it needs to be done right, and
Is the playground only going to be accessible by the classroom of the pre-K?
Currently, it's accessible by all students here, and it will remain open to the community after hours.
Okay.
Brooke, what do you think?
Well, I'm still learning the usage of these funds and what's expected as a balance. So I'm taking your counsel on that. I do understand the need to publicize, and I agree that that's, would have been a facet of the letter, but I think we can do that in other ways. I just come back to feeling strongly that it's asking too much too soon. And I think it's not going to engender the kind of future fundraising that we would want. So if we have it to spend, when do we replenish the preschool funds?
So going forward, the way the budget's built, all the tuition next year is already allocated and used
Okay,
to pay for educational assistance.
okay.
And so we booked the first year to have a cushion for emergencies,
Right,
for
right.
things that come up, for that classroom.
Okay.
I would just make sure there's no needs of the classroom itself that aren't funded in the operational budget that we need, because I do think the insides is important as the outside.
No, I wouldn't be like,
As far as
penny wise, pound
furniture,
foolish, I agree
yeah.
there.
To my knowledge, we're all set for next year. With what's been-
And the gift fund, we could, in theory, pull from both funds?
Yeah, I personally don't want to see the gift fund used for just the pre-K at this point in time, because I do think there's going to be needs coming down the road that you may want to use that money for.
Well, I think the
And if
idea of
you're
going
using a
up
big
to is,
chunk.
sorry.
Yeah, so I would gear all the money towards the pre-K revolving. That's my personal.
And we could say something to the effect that we would give, up to the remaining amount, which is, I didn't write it down exactly, so 31 and change. And then if there's some other monies that happen to come in from other resources or word of mouth or the newsletter or however else. But I totally agree with Brooke about pushing the letter. Then we don't need to go to the 31,000 and change.
But we need to give them enough to get started.
Well, yeah, I mean, and they'll have, they have 10, which, I'm sure, I don't know how much money you have to front to get the guy to show up and
No,
doing
between the
work, but-
30, if you guys say up to 30 and the 10, you've
Yeah,
got 40,000.
we have
That's
it,
enough.
we have
Yeah.
the number.
Yeah.
I think if the motion is up to $30,000, it gives, there's flexibility there. It allows the project tomorrow to move forward, because you have the funding. And if that's offset, if any of that's offset by additional donations and gifts, all the better.
Right.
I think it's smart not to use the gift fund money for the pre-K playground when you do have the pre-K revolving account, which by its name suggests strongly that, the funds, those funds should be utilized for the pre-K program. And given that there may be, there looks like there's a need sooner rather than later to resurface the main playground, I think that the gift fund would be a good way to spend those funds. I'd be much more concerned about using the pre-K revolving funds to pay for that. So
Right.
if you're going to do the 31, I would do it all from the pre-K.
So make a motion to 31,700, I don't know, up to 31,000.
So there's two parts, because one thing, we actually have to just approve the whole playground project, which we haven't
Okay.
done yet. So I think that would be step one, and then step two would be to approve the funding.
When you say the whole playground project, we're just talking
Just
pre-K.
Pre-K,
Yes,
sorry,
thank you.
yes, pre-K.
Okay.
I'm only talking, pre-K. So we've seen the plans, we have the cost estimates. So what we do is approve then, moving forward with building the pre-K.
So I'd like to make a motion going forward, having seen the plans, approving the pre-K playground.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion about the playground in general? Okay, pre-K playground. All in favor? Okay, so now that we've approved the project, we'll move on to how we're going to pay for it.
This is how my house runs too.
So do I have a motion about funding?
I make a motion that we fund up to 31,000, what's the exact number? 31,700?
Let's just say 30,000, because I think also that gives them incentive to get a little more fundraising. Because between the 10 and the 30, that's 40.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Make a motion that we fund up to $30,000 from the pre-K tuition fund as needed
That's
for the preschool.
For the preschool
playground.
program. Second? Or second? Any other discussion on that?
Can I just make sure, sorry to be,
Yep.
can I just make sure the 1,700 is not going to screw you guys for the next, okay, fine, done.
Thank you.
They'll come out of the Hill account.
And we're sure there's nothing else on the horizon
For the preschool?
for the preschool
Yes.
that's even going back there, no?
So we'll have 14,000 left in there. Because going forward, I don't think that balance will necessarily grow unless the school committee going forward decides to keep some of the tuition. But 100% of it is allocated for next year.
Okay.
I appreciate your concern, and I think having watched it just this past year, that.
I mean, I look at this as an upfront cost.
I agree,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree with
it's,
you.
it's always more expensive in the beginning.
Yeah. And people look for it, this is a selling point.
I agree. Okay.
So all in favor of the motion? Aye.
Well done.
Okay.
Could I just have clarification around how you would like this publicized?
How we would like it publicized.
The Brooke Matarese. I mean,
Because you're generously granting us up to the $30,000.
So I liked Bill's idea if you put it, because we were actually talking, I think it was Brooke I was talking about this. Is the pre-K families included in your Chickering email blast?
Yes.
Oh, they are, okay. So I think that's a good way, a low-key way to say that we are moving forward, with the support of the school committee. And I'd like too that it's coming from the pre-K revolving, from the school committee perspective, because we're not taking money from any other arena, and it doesn't warrant not looking that we're taking it from another arena, but something that we have just recently started talking about. So I like that that's coming all pre-K generated funds. So maybe we can work on just an update. We're going to be over the summer building a new playground. There's still some small items that we'd like that aren't funded. So if you're interested, something like that.
Opportunities for contribution.
Right.
So it would be a variation of the letter that was submitted.
So
But just-
I'm happy to work with you, Laura,
Yeah.
and help you craft the message that would go out.
I think it could go in one of your excellent weekly letters as maybe the first item.
And even a flyer, I don't
It's
think there's a
exciting.
problem with putting a
Yeah.
flyer in the preschool. Do they have backpacks you put flyers in anymore?
Every so often, just for curiosity. Yeah.
But even to the new families for next year, we're soliciting, not huge, we're not looking for them to underwrite it, but
No.
they might want to contribute. I know with the preschools we were at, that's how, the parents did pay for all the niceties of the playground. So,
Thank you so much.
okay, so now on the second part.
So on the on the second part, so if I'm correct, the concept of resurfacing the main playground is an issue that is more recent, certainly than the construction of the pre-K playground in the last few months,
Right,
maybe
so,
the last
yeah.
couple of months.
May I? So when you bring in a playground consultant, I think it's probably like in your house when you bring in someone to look at the bathroom, they go down, they're like, hey, your kitchen needs work. So this is what happened when you have, so Nancy has not done a full evaluation of that surface. So I would fully appreciate what Bill had said in terms of separating the two projects. I'd like us to think about doing some evaluations of what really has to happen out there. The project itself has always been curious to me is that it's never been part of the Chickering budget. Going back, here we go, Don, you and I, 1,000 years ago. The PTO funded the playground initially, and it's always been curious to me that as a school, we haven't collectively absorbed the playground into our regular operating budget. So I would pose the wondering about, can we roll this into, I know we've already done the budget for next year, some sort of an operating of capital expense that would be part of the school budget moving forward. So if we think about the on-site evaluation we did, would it make sense for the playground to move into that sort of an arena?
So I go back, Deb, to our day sitting with Dr. Davis was sitting here, and the outdoor classroom. And that's my methodology with this. If you come, you build it, you sort of maintain it.
Yep.
And I know we need the playground, but we also have a very nice playground. So I would also always look, I think, for it to be a concert between, a dance between PTO and the school helping out, just like we did the paving project. So until we feel like we don't have that ability, I personally would hate to see it all absorbed in to the school, because I think there's monies there that we could, but there's money we can spend here through our operating budget that PTO necessarily can't fund. And so that's just my feeling is that, you know, I remember sitting here and listening to that whole thing about the outdoor, you pay for the mulch, you pay for that. I was on the PTO side at that point.
I know.
Yeah. And you were begging for it to be approved. So I think I would just walk that, that's just my opinion, walk that line. Because I do think the PTO raises a lot of money, and the parents love contributing to the playground, as they have with all the, you know, the niceties on the outside, the painted floor, the Plunko, I think Plunko, right? Plinko. The spinner they added. So it's a nice way for them to engage parents, I think, in fundraising for the school, because it's things they can look and see and tangible. So that's, I won't be here though anymore, you could do whatever you want. That's my 2 cents before I still have a voice.
That was my 2 cents. So,
Yeah, okay.
Something to think about, thank you.
So next year, as a PTO is looking to do a check writing campaign, I'm assuming again, is this on their radar screen, or is it too new, or can
No,
it
the
be?
board have already just talked about it, yeah. So we've discussed with Laura and Deb that we'd be more than willing to help them with the main playground. And I think that's something that the PTO would always support. However, as a board, we are in favour of the administration taking the ownership of the project, with the PTO helping to fund it. We feel that experience and skill set wise and record keeping, it would sit far more comfortably and better with the school administration.
Yeah, because you guys know it day to day.
I'm sorry?
Well, the administration, they're the ones who know it day to day, you know,
Yeah.
the needs,
Yeah,
really.
and
Well,
then they
it's-
also, they have the skill set in terms of dealing with the town and the contractors and how that works.
Right, and I totally agree
Oh,
with
yeah.
that.
And
Yeah,
also,
yeah,
yeah, and also in terms of volunteers, we roll on, year off, and that's not to say that I'm gonna forget about them when I go off and I won't help. But, you know, it depends on who it is and whether they leave the town and stuff, so.
So am I hearing we might want to do a actual review of the playground before we think about resurfacing?
That's what's gonna happen.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
We just don't have enough information, I think, right
Yes.
now to make any kind of
I would agree.
reasonable.
Just
We-
with-
With
No, I'm
that
just gonna-
conversation
go
that
ahead.
just happened, though, it just helped me understand, we just contributed to the playground, the pre-K playground. So what makes that different than the all school?
Well, that was, I think, where that, the,
Consultant or?
this is very isolated within the school. And we had a dedicated fund where we collected money from.
But going forward then, as the preschool gets more integrated into the school, is that, you know, maybe we have a preschool room parent, we have more preschool integration in the PTO. Will the preschool playground then roll into the,
Well, you'd hope that they're right, there would
Yeah.
be families then be built up. It's so new now, there's not, but that they
these are
would
just our
start
starting
doing
costs?
fundraising, exactly,
Okay.
right.
I just want to get my head around.
Yeah.
Bill, what are you going to say?
No, what I was going to say is that I think there are still a lot of unanswered questions around this initiative. We'll come back to the June meeting with some more information regarding what it would cost to do an evaluation. And, you know, are there any public agencies that are responsible for inspecting public school playgrounds or public playgrounds? I'm not sure that, I don't know the answer.
Great.
And if there is though, that would, in my mind, would inform the committee and the administration as to how to go about conducting an evaluation and what that might cost. So that's what I think we're prepared to do that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the easiest Chickering Family Handbook change section I've seen in my 6 years, so do you want to go over? I'm used to pages and pages. We must have it right.
So I'm just find. So the first section that we're recommending changing is on admission of students. It currently refers to entry age for kindergarten students, and we want to add what is already in the DS policy manual that also addresses entry age for first graders. And then a line also from the DS policy manual, but in a slightly different section about proof of residency. These things do come up from time to time, and it's easier on our end just to have it right up front in the handbook.
Okay.
Were there questions on that first one?
Proof of residency, how you, if it's a child whose parents live in different locations, how does that, does it just have to be, one of those has to be?
Right, it's the
I should know this one, sorry.
parent with physical custody, and
Okay.
we usually get or need to request the paperwork.
Cool, thank you.
Did I notice we're also removing certain mentions on the immunization certificate? Or did I mix? Because we talked about like whooping cough and tetanus, and then in blue, I don't see any. Is blue what's replacing what's above it?
Yes, that piece should still stand in the health section in a different area of the handbook.
So we had it twice in the handbook.
I was just wondering why we took out specific things that you get immunized for. And then we just said, I think we just say vaccine certificate.
Okay. Let me double check on that, but I believe that's in the health section.
Okay.
Right, you have to have proof that you've had your immunization.
Yeah, it says that in the blue, you say proof of required immunizations, but in the italic black above it, you actually say what their certificate talks about.
You listed out the requirements.
Yeah, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 things we mentioned.
Yeah, there are certain things that are no longer required and that we cannot require.
So, yeah, so by just saying what's required might be fine. I was just wondering, by removing them, saying because that gives us more of a broad brush, then that's fine too. I was just wondering why it was removed.
No, I think it's not there because this is the text that's taken exactly from the policy.
Okay.
So the last time the policy was updated, which was 2012, there may have been a reason why they're not identified individually.
Yep.
But we'll check that, it's a good point.
Okay.
But I know that the lead test, that's not something we can ask for, or anyone does any longer. We could, I'm sure no one has a lead test certificate.
I'm taking another look because I pulled this together a couple weeks ago. I believe up above where it says in parentheses the diphtheria, whooping cough, and so forth, I believe those are examples in the
Okay.
current text, and therefore not needed. It follows in the italic section immunization certificate.
Yep.
And it does say down below in the blue section, proof of required immunizations. In that text, it simply doesn't give examples, that's
Okay.
how I'm reading it.
Yep.
Is that?
Well, because the requirements could
That's
change,
right.
so that
No, I-
provides us
Better
some
off.
I think it
longevity.
makes it more
Yeah.
broad, or, it says, because if the requirements change, you don't want to have to go up and
Right.
date the document all the time, but I just picked up on that.
On our new online registration, we do have a lot of details about this particular piece. And then for the next part, under media, I'm proposing that we add online databases and memberships are for enrolled Chickering students only. We have actually had a family that chose to move to a private school and came back to us asking if they could continue accessing their databases that were presented to them while they were students here at Chickering.
And most of the memberships you sign when you enter into a contract say for students enrolled in the school.
So all other aspects of the handbook are remaining the same,
Yes.
and you just change the names, like, aren't there certain things that have to be updated every year? Or no? I just remember having to update things, like PTO contacts. and
This is the
that
Janice
kind of
Barry,
stuff.
that's the Janice Barry effect. She's probably automated that
Right.
of the work she did. Probably
He's really
automated done it.
substitute.
Crosswalks, okay.
So Don, there's some late breaking news here, and we discovered this after Laura, you and I met. I would recommend that the committee approve these changes. I think they make sense. We may have to come back in June around some student discipline language that we discovered may not have been in any of our handbooks regarding it's known as the Chapter 37H and 3/4 change. It was effective back in 2014. So it doesn't appear that has made it into our handbooks yet, and it really should. So we have language from our attorney, so we'll bring that back in June for additional changes. And these changes are all done online. I mean, it's online, so it's.
So would you like a
Hold up
motion for the,
printing or
Dawn, do we need a motion for it?
To approve, yes, these two.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve the changes as presented.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, so we'll approve those two changes, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so those are approved. Okay, do you want to give us an update on that? Where we stand with the temperature control?
So in terms of the temperature control, I would recommend the committee table this agenda item to the next meeting in June. We did receive a preliminary draft, so a little redundant, but that phraseology. And the subcommittee was able to meet this morning to review it. There's still a lot of questions around that require some clarity and some additional information. So the group felt that, until those questions are answered, there really isn't much to talk about right now. So we'll put this on the June agenda, and hopefully the report will allow the committee to engage in a much more robust discussion about the contents.
It's worth saying that the group hopes to sit with the consultant and answer the questions that the group has. But Bill's great suggestion of making it more efficient than 19 emails back and forth.
We're actually praying for a hot day, so that they can really see the system in action. So keep praying. Just one.
It's already been up to 80 in one of the classrooms
This year.
And you guys have turned off the heat, right? Just checking.
So,
Days when it doesn't come on.
okay,
Madam Chairman,
yes.
Chairwoman, the next item on the agenda is a traditional item of recognition for members who are leaving the board. So at this point, Mr. Hill will take over.
It's really hard, and I'm going to ask Brooke and Henry to speak as well, and anyone else who wants to, but it's very, very difficult to put into words the degree of reassurance that I have felt knowing that Dawn has been at the helm since I've been on the committee. There is such a depth of context, such a strong handle on what is right, and such a wonderful deft approach to what is trivial and should be ignored. And what I mean by that is that she's always so good at focusing on the most important core aspects of the many things that we have to think about. Because of the open meeting laws, when we meet, we actually talk a lot, and I know it extends the working day, and we really appreciate everyone staying so sharp. But because of those, it means that we do speak a lot. And when I first turned up, I sat there and made some rambling comments about school safety. And I think Dawn and Karen Ringgold turned to me and said, if you keep talking, you might find yourself on this side of the table. And ever since I've been on this side of the table, when Dawn and I speak in between meetings, just the two of us, But I think especially when she speaks here, I find myself pausing and drifting off into 15 seconds of appreciation. Because it really has been really a privilege to see you serve so very competently and very with such a great inspiration. So that's my words. I have something from the committee, which is actually very sweet, I think. It says, Chickering School, the town of Dover presents to Dawn Fattori an appreciation of outstanding dedication and visionary guidance in DS Blue.
Thank you. Oh, that's so sweet.
And there's a traditional wonderful
Apple that we all work so hard for. Thank you.
So, and I know that's very important from all of us and from all of your community on both sides of the table, administration, school, parents, children. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And it's been a privilege, I say, to have sat in this chair for 6 years and 4 years as chair. I would beat everyone down every year to let me stay chair. But I truly do love Chickering. I always say my daughter was the first kindergarten class here, and I think I've been in a volunteer position in this school since then, and she's a sophomore in college now. So I do have huge love for this building, and I do think it's so special, and anyone who works here I think is privileged. So I thank you for putting up with me, because I sometimes say it, not always on everyone's side, but I do always want to do what's best for the town and for the staff who works here and for the kids who go here. So, and I've had to say I've loved, you guys have all changed seats a little bit over the 6 years, but I've made so many new friends. I do think that this committee especially works really well together. They're very collaborative, we listen to one another. So I hope that continues, because I do think that we are the best school committee of the Dover-Sherburne district. And so I hope we just keep that up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.
Okay, so I left one more piece of business, the consent agenda. And I do actually have some changes on the minutes.
Reading everything to the end, right?
Yeah, I know. Well, it dealt with the budget, and I just like to make sure that is appropriately documented. So if it's, I'm going to just read what I'm going to give Cheryl the change to the minutes, but in point number 3, under the public hearing, where it says salary increases of $165,000, it's going to then say addition of 1 classroom teacher and expansion for the FLES program to include the 3rd grade for $92,500, then offset by $45,000 in lower salaries due to 2 retirements and the use of the pre-K revolving fund of $45,700 to cover educational assistance. That better sums up what we were trying to say that day. And I just had one other word change, just in number 6, just was to were. Anyone else have any edits?
Got the same
You got
thing.
that? Okay. And then we also have we will be accepting the $2,000 from the Dover-Sherburne Youth Soccer. And thank you, Adrian, for that, towards the preschool. So I have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Okay, perfect, all in favor? The last item is communications. You have in your packet minutes from the Dover-Sherburne Regional School District from February 4th and Sherburne's February 9th and March 8th minutes for your review. Any other pieces of business? Before I adjourn, I wish you all the best, and maybe you'll see me again.
Hope so.
Maybe. Speed dial, so you're still there.
So motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? Thank you all.
Thank you.